Super Mario 64. When the Nintendo 64 debuted in 1996, players expected a more advanced Mario. What they got instead was a complete reimagining of what video games could be. For the first time, Mario leaped into a fully 3D world, and it actually worked. Nintendo nailed smooth analog stick movement, fluid camera control, and level design that felt like playgrounds rather than simple obstacle courses. Peach's Castle acted as a hub world, and from there, players dove into paintings that transported them to wildly different environments. Snow-covered peaks, haunted mansions, shifting deserts, even a giant clock whose gears ticked in real time. Each world offered multiple stars to collect, but instead of a linear path, players had freedom. You could choose how to approach challenges, experiment with Mario's moveset, and discover secrets at your own pace. The game also introduced mechanics we now take for granted. Triple jumps, wall kicks, and ground pounds were brand new here, expanding Mario's toolset into something acrobatic and expressive. Players were stunned, and the game went on to sell over 11 million copies worldwide. Super Mario 64 wasn't just the N64's defining launch title, it was the blueprint for 3D gaming itself. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. If Super Mario 64 showed us how 3D platforming could work, Ocarina of Time proved that epic adventures could thrive in 3D too. Released in 1998, it was a watershed moment for the entire industry. Players stepped into the boots of Link and explored Hyrule in a way no one thought possible. Vast fields, bustling towns, dungeons layered with puzzles, and a story that blended myth with emotions. What made Ocarina revolutionary was its design. Nintendo introduced Z-targeting, a lock-on system that turned chaotic sword fights into fluid, cinematic duels. Dungeons like the Forest Temple and the Water Temple became masterclasses in puzzle design, pushing players to think in 3 dimensions. And then there was time itself. Pulling the Master Sword transformed Child Link into Adult Link, splitting the game into 2 eras and adding weight to every choice. The soundtrack sealed the deal. The ocarina was your lifeline, letting you change day to night, call storms, or warp across the land. Critics hailed it instantly, and it remains one of the highest reviewed games of all time. On the N64, Ocarina of Time raised the bar and it defined what 3D adventure games would be for decades. Mario Kart 64. When Mario Kart 64 hit in 1997, it instantly became the centerpiece of living room multiplayer. The SNES originally laid the groundwork, but the leap to 3D tracks and 4-player split screen turned it into an instant classic. For many kids in the late 90s, sleepovers and weekends weren't complete without a Mario Kart tournament on the N64. The jump to polygonal tracks gave courses more personality and scale. Suddenly, you weren't just circling flat circuits. You were racing through chaotic environments like the massive jump of Wario Stadium or the unpredictable traffic of Toad's Turnpike. Power sliding became more essential, and the items added just the right amount of chaos to keep every race unpredictable. But the real secret weapon was battle mode. Balloon-popping duels in arenas like Block Fort and Skyscraper created rivalries that could last for hours. Even if you lost the game, you could still ruin your friend's chances with a well-timed shell, and that made every match feel personal. Mario Kart 64 went on to sell more than 9 million copies, making it one of the N64's best sellers. It was the glue that held N64 multiplayer together. GoldenEye 007. GoldenEye 007 wasn't supposed to be a landmark video game. Released in 1997, it was a movie tie-in that most people expected to be forgettable. Instead, it became one of the most influential shooters ever made, and a killer game for the Nintendo 64. The single-player campaign surprised everyone with its quality. Missions weren't just about blasting enemies. They gave you objectives like planting bugs, protecting scientists, or escaping unseen. Levels like the facility and surface gave players multiple ways to approach objectives, making the game feel closer to a spy thriller than a simple running gun. But where GoldenEye truly became legendary was multiplayer. The 4-player split-screen deathmatch turned living rooms into war zones. Suddenly, kids were arguing over screen peeking, swearing off the golden gun, and banning Oddjob because his hitbox was infamously smaller. It was messy, chaotic, and unforgettable. GoldenEye also showed consoles could handle first-person shooters, something many believed belonged exclusively to PCs. Its control scheme, pacing, and map design laid the groundwork for Halo and every console shooter that followed. It went on to sell over 8 million copies, but its legacy goes beyond numbers. GoldenEye 007 proved a licensed game could not only succeed, but redefine an entire genre. Super Smash Bros. In 1999, Nintendo pulled off one of the boldest crossovers in gaming history, Super Smash Bros. Which started as a quirky experiment on the N64, became the foundation for one of Nintendo's most successful franchises ever. The premise was simple but genius. Take iconic characters from across Nintendo's library and let them brawl it out. Mario vs. Link, Pikachu vs. Samus, Kirby vs. Donkey Kong. Matchups fans had only dreamed about suddenly came to life. Unlike traditional fighters, Smash ditched health bars for percentage damage. The higher your percentage, the farther you'd fly when hit. This made matches unpredictable, chaotic, and perfect for casual players, while still rewarding skill through timing, spacing, and stage control. Stages like Hyrule Castle and Saffron City became instant classics, full of hazards and nostalgia. What really sold it, though, was multiplayer. With 4 players on one screen, Smash became a party staple, rivaling Mario Kart for living room dominance. Arguments over items, bragging rights from clutch comebacks, and the joy of knocking a friend off the stage defined the experience. Selling over 5 million copies, the original Smash proved Nintendo characters didn't just belong in their own worlds, they could share the same ring, and fans never looked back. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. If Ocarina of Time was a heroic adventure, Majora's Mask was its twisted mirror. Released in 2000, it reused Ocarina's engine but delivered something entirely different. Darker, stranger, and more experimental than any Zelda before it. Instead of saving the princess, Link found himself trapped in a land where the moon was literally falling from the sky. Players had just 3 in-game days to stop the apocalypse, with a constant sense of dread as that grinning moon loomed overhead. The game's signature mechanic was its time loop. Every 72 in-game hours, the cycle reset, unless Link played the Song of Time to rewind the clock. Progress meant learning schedules, helping townsfolk at precise moments, and managing a packed journal of side quests. Each mask Link collected granted new abilities, from transformation masks that turned him into a Deku, Goron, or Zora, to quirky ones that revealed hidden secrets. Majora's Mask forced players to embrace repetition, but in return it delivered emotional payoffs. Helping a couple reunite before Doomsday or calming a ghost soldier's regrets felt powerful because of the looming clock. Risky and unconventional, it sold over 3 million copies and cemented its status. Star Fox 64. Star Fox 64, released in 1997, was more than just a sequel. It was the definitive version of Nintendo's space shooter formula. It put players back in the cockpit of the R-Wing with Fox McCloud and his team of wisecracking wingmates. Missions played out like cinematic set pieces, blending branching paths, huge boss battles, and relentless action into a package that felt ahead of its time. It also made history as the first N64 game to come bundled with the Rumble Pack. That little add-on introduced force feedback to console gaming, shaking the controller with every laser blast or missile hit. It was a revelation. Suddenly games felt more physical, more immersive. The Rumble Pack became so influential that vibration feedback is now standard in nearly every controller. The game's dialogue also carved its place in pop culture. Lines like "do a barrel roll" and "can't let you do that, Star Fox" became memes long before memes were even a thing. And unlike many N64 games, Star Fox 64 was designed for replayability, with hidden routes that rewarded skill and exploration. Selling over 4 million copies, it proved the N64 could deliver arcade-style thrills at home. Banjo-Kazooie. By 1998, Banjo-Kazooie was the crown jewel on an N64. At first glance, it looked like another 3D platformer in Mario's shadow, but within minutes, it carved out its own identity. The Bear and Bird duo, Banjo and Kazooie, brought personality, humor, and a distinct moveset that made exploration endlessly fun. Each of the game's 9 massive worlds felt alive, from the sandy dunes of Gobi's Valley to the haunted halls of Mad Monster Mansion. Instead of just grabbing stars, players collected jiggies, musical notes, and a host of other items, with each objective woven clearly into the environment. Kazooie's abilities, from firing eggs to flying with her wings, added layers of variety, making movement itself a joy. What made Banjo-Kazooie stand out was Rare's attention to charm. Characters were quirky, levels were packed with secrets, and the game's self-aware humor gave it a playful edge. The villain Gruntilda rhymed all her dialogue, and the banter between Banjo and Kazooie became a highlight in itself. Selling over 3.6 million copies, it became one of the console's biggest hits and proved that Rare could go toe-to-toe with Nintendo in the 3D platformer space. For many, it was the N64's ultimate collectathon. Leave a comment and tell me your favorite Nintendo game of all time. Perfect Dark. By 2000, Rare had already cemented itself as a master of the first-person shooter with GoldenEye 007. But with Perfect Dark, the studio pushed the genre even further. Built on an upgraded version of the GoldenEye engine, it delivered a deeper, more ambitious shooter that tested the limits of the Nintendo 64. In fact, to access the full single-player campaign, you needed the N64 expansion pack, proof of just how technically demanding it was. The story followed Joanna Dark, an agent of the Carrington Institute, battling against conspiracies, corporations, and even aliens. For a console game, the narrative was surprisingly cinematic, featuring cutscenes, voice acting, and missions that played out like spy thrillers. Gameplay variety was another standout, with stealth, hacking, and futuristic gadgets layered on top of traditional gunplay. Just like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark's multiplayer became a phenomenon. It expanded customization to new levels, bots could be added, weapons could be toggled, and modes could be tailored to ridiculous extremes. For N64 owners, it was one of the most complete multiplayer packages ever released. Though its hardware limitations held it back at times, Perfect Dark sold over 2.5 million copies and earned critical acclaim. Many still consider it the pinnacle of N64 shooters, and Joanna Dark became an icon in her own right. Paper Mario. At the tail end of the N64's life cycle, Nintendo released a game that nobody expected to become such a classic, Paper Mario. Originally conceived as a spiritual successor to Super Mario RPG, it reinvented Mario in an RPG format, but with a unique twist. The entire world looked like it was made of paper and cardboard. The art style gave the game an instantly charming, storybook feel that still looks timeless today. Unlike most role-playing games of the era, Paper Mario kept things approachable. Combat was turn-based, but players had to press buttons with precise timing to boost attacks or block enemy strikes, keeping battles interactive. The adventure was filled with clever partners, each with unique abilities from Goombario's knowledge to Bombette's explosive power, making exploration as fun as the fighting. What truly stood out was its humor and heart. The dialogue was witty, full of personality, and packed with Nintendo's trademark charm. It felt less like a serious RPG and more like a playful journey through a paper-crafted Mushroom Kingdom. Paper Mario sold over 1 million copies and became one of the N64's most beloved swan songs. It also kicked off a franchise that's still going strong today, proving Mario could conquer genres far beyond platforming. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos daily.